Welcome. You're listening to Behind the Business podcast.
Do you ever wonder what really happens behind a business?
Well, in this podcast, we explore the trials and tribulations of starting a business and being an entrepreneur. I'm your host, Jason Manor-Inter.
And I'm your co-host, David Liu. And this is Behind the Business.
And welcome, guys. Welcome to episode number 18, Behind the Business. Today, we got the first restaurant in our podcast here. How do you say it? Allium?
Yeah, the Allium. Yeah,
cool.
And that's the Latin term for the genus of cultivated onions and garlics.
Got it. Yeah, I was gonna ask where that word came from, but yeah, we got Allium, and Jared and his wife, partner, and I guess they have a newborn, right? And sorry, what was your name? Laura. Cool. Yeah, let's get started here. You guys opened up Allium how long ago?
So it's been just over a year.
Yeah, so August 10th, 2019.
Okay.
Was our sort of our soft opening.
Yeah.
Has it only been a year?
Yeah, just a little over
a year, yeah.
Nice. We actually on your guys' opening week because one of our clients, I guess his cousin is one of the chefs.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. His name's Dallas. Our client's name is Dallas. I don't know what his cousin's name is, but he was the one who actually introduced it to us. So we actually came there and ate on not on your soft opening, but the week afterwards.
Oh, awesome. That's wicked.
It's pretty cool.
What'd you think?
Very good. I love I eat a decent amount of vegetarian food, so I felt like it was a good spread. It was very
Right.
Really nice.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I guess if I can just sort of jump in on that, the sort of the model behind the Allium. I mean, we are plant-based. We're a vegetarian and vegan restaurant, but we don't really we don't feel the need to fly that flag as sort of our identity. You know, we basically just say that we cook really delicious food that happens to have no meat in it.
Yeah.
And there are quite a bunch of us there that aren't vegetarian or vegan, but we just sort of recognize that people don't have to eat meat every day, all the time. In fact, I think I read something like Canadians get 3 times the amount of protein they need in their diet, but like a fifth of the amount of fiber. So we're all super proteined up, but we don't have enough fiber in our bodies. So, it's a great idea to eat more plant-based now and again, for sure.
For sure. I feel like that's definitely the route that a lot of people are going. Is everything on your menu, there's no meat at all, right?
Yeah, no meat or fish. We do have some cheeses, some local cheeses and dairy products. And we don't have any nuts. A lot of vegetarian places are super nut and even tofu centered. We don't have any of that stuff. Some nuts, some hazelnuts, because you can actually get those in Alberta here. So we're really committed to this idea of a localized economy. So trying to support producers as local as possible. So that's why we're not buying cashews, or almonds or stuff that are not only come from far away, but they're ecologically intensive, right? To grow and to ship those things takes a lot of resources.
Yeah, I heard that the nut industry, it actually uses a lot of water.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, almonds in California is like a disaster, right? So
consume so much water just to create that small nut, and then it causes huge effects on the water and the almonds as well too. So
totally, and it's such an interesting thing in the realm of sort of plant-based or vegetarian cuisine because so much of the motivation, I think, and I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of the motivation for people who are plant-based or vegetarian is often this sort of ethicality and consideration of where we eat and how we eat and the treatment of animals and all of this stuff. But then the way it's been marketed a lot is it's like you're doing well, but you're actually using a lot of these other super intensive ecologically and sort of human destructive practices. A lot of soy production that comes from overseas is highly problematic. And that's the cornerstone of a lot of plant-based diet. And again, this idea of nuts and avocados, all these food items that I would argue are tied to this sort of monoculture, export-oriented form of agriculture that becomes highly problematic. And so a lot of plant-based focused folks are oftentimes
reliant, I think, on those food.
Yeah, they're sort of trying to do well for the planet, but then oftentimes kind of actually reproducing a lot of weird issues in other forms. So sort of a definitely consideration we have at the Allium. We're trying to think about, how we can be plant-based, but also kind of aware of what we're sourcing and what we're eating and what we're supporting.
Yeah, that's a major problem also with palm oil.
Oh yeah.
The cheap alternative. They use it for a lot of like fillers and also cosmetics. And then kind of that they've been, just plowing down and burning down the forests and just like displacing animals and just because people want to use this cheap alternative for oil.
Yeah,
totally. It's pretty crazy. That's good though.
So tell us, what were you guys doing before Allium, and how did you guys end up? Why did you guys end up deciding to go that route with Allium there?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could share that the Allium sort of grew out of a graduate degree I did many years ago.
Okay.
I was doing a master's degree in sociology in Vancouver, and really focusing on economics. So looking at contemporary issues of economy, increasing wealth stratification and inequality, and trying to look at sort of structural causes and solutions to the current sort of situation we're in. I would argue that as we've seen, our current economy has produced massive, massive wealth for so many people. And it's also produced a lot of wants for so many people. And that's really what we sort of think about when talking about trying to address issues of economy. Capitalism has produced insane amount of wealth for people. It's also produced a lot of poverty amidst this wealth. Mm-hmm. And so how do we start looking at equalizing some of those economic disparities? I firmly believe that a working class is what builds an economy, is what makes an economy run. It's people spending money on the day-to-day that creates diffused wealth, diffused prosperity for everyone. And so if you don't have a robust, an empowered, able-bodied working class in a society, then everyone, I think, is doing poorly. It's going to adversely affect our entire society. And so a lot of the studies and then research that I did sort of kept pointing to empowering the working class as a way to address issues of economy. And that really fed me and my desire to found the Allium, to do the business plan for the Allium. Before we kind of arrived at this idea of doing a worker-owned restaurant cooperative, Laura and I were just kind of enjoying life, I guess. We were living in our van for a while. We drove south for about a year, almost to Guatemala. Cool. It was actually in the south of Mexico that the idea of the Allium came about. We were sitting in this wine bar in San Cristobal de las Casas, this little sort of town in the southern state of Chiapas. And with every wine or beer you got, they gave you a free tapa. We were just sitting there, really just kind of enjoying the atmosphere, and there was some nice music playing. And I'm sort of talking about, well, I finished my graduate degree and I have no idea what I'm doing now. And I don't want to.
How old are you right now?
I'm 36.
Oh, you're 36. Okay. So you guys were doing this up till 34-ish, I would say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Laura kind of said,
so this is your first business?
Yeah.
I mean,
yes and no.
Yes and no. Before this and still now, I work for Luke's Drug Mart. I'm not sure if you guys know.
Oh, yeah. The one in Blustein?
Pardon me?
They're kind of spread out now, the Luke's Drug Mart.
Yeah. We've got kind of 4 locations now. So I started with them back before the Bridgeland location turned into a cafe. So I do cafe operations for them. So I kind of opened the Bridgeland location, and then so I've kind of been doing that for, I don't know, close to 7 or 8 years now. I kind of have been doing business in that sense.
When we moved to Vancouver, Laura set up 2 Luke's Cafes in Vancouver. She helped set up the new locations in the library. So she's opened a number of cafes. I helped my sister run a vegetarian restaurant in Vancouver for 5 years as well. So definitely helped to inform a lot of the Allium as it is today. But yeah, so we did have some business experience. Laura sort of, we were sitting in this wine bar, just drinking wine and enjoying ourselves. And Laura's like, why don't you just, dude, like you could do something like this. Why don't you just set up like a tap bar? And I was like, I hate restaurants, Laura. Like, I hate restaurants. I'm so sick of restaurants. And I was thinking about it. I was like, but maybe a worker-owned restaurant. And Laura was kind of like, yeah, like that. You could do that for sure.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the seed, I think. And she just kept whispering in my ear every now and again, like, work her own restaurant, work her own restaurant. And we found ourselves back in Calgary, and I was lucky enough to get in with Momentum, which is a nonprofit here in the city, and they give free business classes to social enterprises. So I did what's called the incubator class with them. They helped me develop a business plan. We had accountants and lawyers come in. We, did demographic research. It was really pivotal actually to the formation of the Allium. And after this 6-month class, I had a business plan and just thought, all right, let's do this, I guess.
Are you like the chef there? Are you just managing it, or like how does that work? What are your roles in the company?
Yeah, I mean, the greatest thing for me about worker co-ops is that there is freedom for a person to develop capacities and skills and interests in any area of the business. So, my experience historically has been more front of house management. But at the Allium, I do it all, and I love it. My work week there could be bartending one night, cooking the next night, serving another night, and then maybe dishes. So I'm open to all of it. We do have someone who's more of a specific admin lead, and they do a lot of the book sort of behind the scenes stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't do too much bookkeeping and accounting, which I'm fine with. But other than that, sort of anything that needs to be done.
It's kind of cool. You kind of have experience in everything, kind of keeps things interesting for you as well.
Yes.
And you can kind of see all aspects of the business and where you can kind of optimize them or how to improve things when you're in different divisions of the business itself.
Totally. And like you really aptly noted, it keeps the work fresh. In every previous position or job, traditionally, in restaurant or any sort of traditional capitalist structure, you work one role. This is your role, and you fulfill it. You come in there as a chef every day and you're cooking, or you come in there as a bookkeeper every day and you're bookkeeping. For me, that repetition of tasks gets really old really fast. I like variety. So the worker co-op model is great because it allows me that freshness of role every day, basically.
How many employees do you guys have right now?
Yeah, so we have a worker co-op base of 15 people, and the way that we structured it.
What is worker comp exactly? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, for sure. So there's, I'll just give a quick background on co-ops.
I have no idea what that means.
Of course. Yeah, no.
I've never actually heard of that, which is crazy, right? But this is really interesting to me because, it's never heard of that.
So co-ops come in a couple different forms. The two major forms that you'll find co-ops in are either consumer co-ops or worker co-ops.
And you're in worker co-ops right now.
Yeah. So just real quick, a consumer co-op would be like Co-op, the grocery store, for instance, or MEC. So you would own a share, right? As a consumer, you would get some kind of small dividend at the end of a fiscal year. You can attend AGMs and meetings to vote in boards of directors and to make policy decisions. But at a consumer co-op, you still have employees, you still have investors, you still have managers. It's very much a traditional business structure. Mm-hmm. A worker co-op, by contrast, means that everyone involved in the space is either an owner of the space or on their way to becoming an owner of the space.
Oh.
We have no investors. We have no bosses. We have no hierarchy. We actually operate on a non-hierarchical model called holacracy. So that means everyone is sort of equal. We make decisions collectively. We share profit collectively. So profit is paid out at the end of a fiscal year proportionate to hours worked in that year. The more you work, the more profit you make. The less you work, the less profit you make. We still all receive a wage, but we actually get directorship. So we are learning to be self-empowered, have full control of our work, and direct our work so people can engage with the space, change things as they want, bring things up. We have monthly meetings. So this is what I would call actually socialism in action. And I know that becomes a bit politicized or dramatic when you use these terms. People have a lot of emotion tied to these concepts. Mm-hmm. But we call this socialism in action because it's actually a meaningful form of socialism. It's not this idea of like, Cuba or this communist or whatever. This is actually the harder you work, the more money you make out of your work. The more directly involved you are in the space, you have democratic control of your workspace. No one actually is telling you what to do. You are collectively operating a space with your community. You're building community. You're keeping the economy local. You're paying fair living wages. All these things are tied to worker co-ops. And what's really funny is worker co-ops in Alberta are super old. I mean, Alberta, in terms of like the contemporary colonial form that it is, wouldn't have been founded without worker co-ops. They were pivotal for people settling the West, and they predate sort of colonial relations here as well in different forms. But worker co-ops are a very, very old model, especially here in Alberta, and it's something that we've sort of forgotten about for whatever reason. And so that's something that the Allium is really trying to do, is remind people that there is a more equitable way of doing business. There's a more equitable way of engaging with each other and making money. And you can actually make people love their work more, be more invested in their workspace, and be more engaged in their lives and their communities through these work structures.
Pretty cool. Yeah, it sounds like a tribe almost. Like you guys are all doing your own little tasks. You're helping each other out for the greater good of the community, and everybody kind of benefits from it. So it's like, yeah, old school tribe.
Totally. Laura she made this really good analogy early days. A relationship in a traditional capitalist business is sort of like a love affair. You get a job, you get hired by someone. It's super sexy and exciting. You're all really having a great time. But sure enough, within a certain amount of time, generally that romance, the lust kind of fades. And eventually someone tires of the work or whatever. There may be some kind of conflict. And generally the result is someone is fired or they quit or there's a breakdown in the relationship. Mm-hmm. A worker co-op, by contrast, is a lot more like a marriage. We are committed to building this business together and to being with each other. And so instead of turning away from each other during conflict, we actually commit to working out our issues, to resolving our problems. And so we say we mend relationships, we don't break them. We build relationships, we don't break them. So it's a lot, it's hard work, right? It takes commitment. People have to let down their ego a lot. They have to let go. And we have to make a conscious decision to work through interpersonal conflict. And it can be very challenging, but it's also super rewarding.
So just let me get this clear here. So everyone that works there owns part of the company? Is that right?
Yeah, so as it stands right now, we have 7 full owners and everyone else is a probationary owner. So people have to pass a 6-month probation period, after which they get the opportunity to buy in. I set the member share at $5,000 because the idea is this was to be class inclusive. We wanted people, working class people, to be able to actually meaningfully own a piece of a business, be entitled to profit share, have control over the space. Now it's funny because, $5,000 is not a lot of money. It is literally a drop in the bucket for restaurant ownership. Mm-hmm. But I met with, I would say, over 40 people easily in the last year to talk about getting involved or to have them come on as probationary owners. And a surprisingly large portion of those people were unable to pay $5,000. That was outside of their ability as working class folks to actually get that money together and pay that member share. And it's not because they're lazy. I mean, a lot of these people are working 2 jobs, but many of them have dependents. They have kids or maybe an older family member with illness, or they are just shouldering a lot of debt from maybe a sort of unsustainable lifestyle, or maybe whatever, maybe some kind of crisis they had experienced, whatever the reason. So that idea of paying $5,000 for a lot of people, a lot of working class people, is really just outside of their perceived ability. And that really starts to problematize this idea that we can all just bootstrap ourselves to success, that we can just work hard and own a business. And for many people, their life circumstances don't allow for that, and it's a kind of a wake up call. It's like, crap, there is actually a structural problem with our economy. If people are expected to have 2 incomes and shoulder an insurmountable level of debt, and that's sort of the norm, that to me doesn't make sense, So this idea of worker co-ops is about trying to give workers profit. And that's how I think, if you're the one out there day to day making the value for your business, making the surplus value for your business, we believe that you should have a say in some of that surplus value.
So you guys use a 6-month process to kind of vet the person to make sure that it's the right fit.
Totally.
Exactly.
Totally. We don't want someone giving us $5,000. And it's happened a few times where people are like, I'm in, like, here's my $5,000. And it's like, no. Like we all gotta make sure you're happy and make sure I'm happy. And, end of the day, it's still a restaurant and the work kind of sucks. So, people have to make sure they're happy with it and that they can stick it out. And then it's like, okay, if you can do that, we want you in.
For sure.
So how does that work where, the 6 months pass, they're like, hey, we're interested. You guys are like, yeah, okay, we want you in. They pay the $5,000 and they own a percentage of the company. And then you guys split like the profits at the end, but they still get their hourly wage. Is that right?
Exactly. Yes. So in a way, what it allows us is that profit portion that generally is so integral to the functioning of an enterprise. Profit generally is the owner's wage, right? And if the owner isn't making profit, well, they're probably not going to keep the business going, right? Mm-hmm. By contrast, as a worker co-op, we pay ourselves a living wage. We're committed to that. And so profit is almost like a bonus to us. And it's awesome because it actually takes off a bit of the operating pressure on the business itself. Mm-hmm. There's no one there saying like, I need to cut costs. Where's my profit? Where's my profit? I mean, of course, we would love to see a profit at the Allium. That's something we're really working towards. And we almost turned a profit in our first year. If it wasn't for COVID, we would have been doing really well. And that's actually amazing, I think, for a restaurant. Based on traditional restaurant projections, I had the Allium losing $60,000 in its first year. To go from a projected loss of $60,000 to almost a profit, I mean, that I think is a massive testament to the power of worker co-ops.
Absolutely.
And that's with no debt either.
Yeah, no debt.
No debt no debt from the opening of the restaurant or anything.
Yeah.
Which is pretty unheard of.
Yeah. And again, that's because we were there. We were the ones physically building the space. We were the ones designing. We were the ones painting. We were the ones, making the menu items, doing all the marketing. Like, we don't have a bunch of capital that we can lean on, but we have the minds of 15 brilliant people and their creativity. And when they come together with a collective goal, I mean, we've seen, our ability to weather through COVID and actually adapt, make these pivots and launch new business models, sort of sections of the co-op during COVID, again, was an amazing testament to the power of worker co-ops. We don't have money, but we have a lot of creativity.
Yeah. I like the feel of the spot too. Like it has like a very minimal look and feel. Like
yeah.
It's there for the food and the quality of the food. So it's like, it was a nice atmosphere when we went there.
Thank you. You can thank. She's the mastermind, really. But yeah, so if someone would buy in that $5,000 share, they would get their wage. You can buy at the Allium. You can buy 100 shares if you want. You could give us $5,000. As an owner, someone can give you $5,000 as many times as they want. Mm-hmm. There is no benefit to buying more than one share. One share, one vote. You get profit proportionate to your hours worked in a year. Doesn't matter.
So one share is worth $5,000.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. You buy in a share for $5,000, and then you get profit at the end of a year. We would add up all of the hours worked in that year by owners and divide that by how much profit you have, and then you would get a profit share based on hours worked. So again, the more hours you work, the more profit you get. The less hours you work, the less share of that profit you get.
This is amazing because this has got me thinking now about our business model, right? Especially having, I would say, employees own part of the business, I think helps the business further. Exactly what you guys have done, right?
Totally. And there's all sorts of other good pieces that go with that collective ownership, community ownership. I mean, oftentimes, and this is sort of more of a broad view, but if you own a petrochemical business in some town and you need to dump a bunch of toxic waste, I mean, if it's your community that owns it, you're probably not dumping that in your backyard because that's your backyard. You care about it. You're not going to be trying to sourcing cheap products from outside of your community or your economy. Because again, that's your community, that's your economy. So the more local connection you have to that area, generally the better decisions are made for that area, for your economy, for your community. So there's all sorts of really cool, just like positive ripple effects, I think, that come from this cooperative model of ownership.
At the beginning, how many people was there? Because was it just you two? initially when you guys started? Like, how did you guys grow so fast?
It was sort of a whole bunch of just lucky moments, probably, and maybe being an ethically driven business. I mean, I don't know how true this is, but it feels like it gave us some momentum, some interest. So it started just myself doing this business, writing business plan and writing the business plan and doing sort of some of the research work. Laura was the first person that I recruited. She was sort of involved.
Partially because I convinced you.
Partially because she was kind of involved from day one.
Kind of had to.
Yeah.
I then approached one of my oldest best friends. They always say don't mix business and pleasure, but I've done a lot of that here at the Allium.
And it's like me and Dave. Me and Dave have known each other 15 years.
Awesome.
Say plus, and we partnered up 3 years ago, Dave. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
and there's all sorts of challenges that can come with that, right? Like,
oh yeah.
you tell each other to fuck off way quicker maybe than you would a stranger, but you can also bounce back from that a lot better, So
exactly.
It's like comes with a ton of challenges, but a ton of awesome bonuses. So sort of one close friend, and then I manage a nonprofit as well, so I managed to get someone from the nonprofit to join. And then someone I had gone to school with for a long time. And then Laura's brother's ex-wife was one of our people who joined too. So it was very much a social network at the start. It was just like, who do we know? Who could be interested? A little bit of convincing. Some people were like, I don't want to do this. I hate restaurants. And I was like, me too, man. I hate restaurants. Like, come join us. Come join us. And we'll hate restaurants together.
Well, that's a bold move, I feel, especially you don't like restaurants, and I feel like you don't really have a background in cooking, do you? Or
not really, but I do. Like, I come from a family of foodies. I hate that term, but I do, and I've been cooking my whole life. Like,
so you have been cooking?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Just not professionally, They always say that you can turn a hobby into a profession and you'll start to hate it. So I've always tried to keep cooking out of that realm, but I'm actually loving it at the Allium, to be honest. And we do have someone who joined on, is an owner now, Alex Hamilton, and he's taken over a lot of the food design, and he's brilliant and has so much knowledge into cooking for 20 plus years. Yeah. So it's like every time I'm in there with him, I'm just learning stuff. He's teaching and he's sharing, and so it's made it really, really enjoyable. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's funny. I feel like people do things they hate and they succeed at them, maybe because they hate them. I don't know.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you too. Like the Calgary restaurant business, I feel is really hard, right? It's a tough business. We've seen a lot of restaurants open and close, and you guys came out pretty strong, I felt. I've been there, I think, 2 or 3 times already. And it's following that trend of like vegan food, right? And it's good food also. What would you guys say you guys have learned in the last year growing the business? The biggest things you've learned?
I think, well, for us, especially because we kind of spearheaded the whole organization, that it's been really learning to let go. When you have such a big vision of what you want to create, and then you bring so many people in such a like non-hierarchy organization, it can be difficult sometimes being like, okay, I'm going to let go of this design element. This is the vision that I had, but somebody else now has a vision for it. So I think trying to learn to let go of those things and share that creative element was definitely what I think I learned the most in the last year.
Yeah, no, 100%. I totally agree. I mean, it's like, this is supposed to be I call this a humanization project. I think one of the major parts of the Allium is trying to help each other recognize our own power and our own abilities in the world. And to do that, it really does necessitate letting go. And I'm not good at it. Like, I'll be the first to admit that, I have a vision for the Allium. And I hold on to that vision very tight sometimes, but I'm supposed to be trusting in others' abilities and trusting in other people to make smart decisions. And so, when I don't do that, it's very torturous for me. And what I've realized, I'm starting to learn, still not good at it, but when I let go a bit and I let people take the reins and have control, or I just sort of get out of the way, not let go or let them, but rather get out of the way and not try to take up that space. It's just amazing what people do and their abilities, and it's a lot of, as Laura says, it's just letting go of that ego and that control and that desire and recognizing and believing in other people. And that's super powerful. It's amazing.
I would feel that would be really hard to do, especially if you guys, started it, bringing people on, and then they become essentially your new business partners, right?
Absolutely.
With different views and visions, totally. Right? And you have to be like, shit, that's not, no, that, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Like, there you
go.
It's
hard, but now they own it. So you do actually, it's actually, I think it's brilliant, actually, and it helps you grow the company without all your own efforts, right? And having people wanting to grow just as much as you.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. Well, I know for me, we just had this little one 2 weeks ago, so I'm now on maternity leave. So I'm not really in the restaurant that much. I'm still doing all of the social media and marketing. Mm-hmm. But all of my other roles have really, other members have taken them over. And at first I was really, really, hesitant and scared to let go of those roles and those tasks. But then as I started to do it kind of slowly and give up some of those positions, I don't know, seeing other people just kind of take them and do such an amazing job with them. Mm-hmm. It's been a huge relief also to just be able to focus on our family a little bit.
Totally. I should say definitely part of the desire to make this a worker co-op, to make the Allium worker co-op, was my graduate studies. But it was also when I was doing my graduate degree, I was helping my sister with her restaurant in Vancouver, and to see the toll that sole proprietorship of a restaurant or a business like a restaurant can have on a person was like, holy crap, I never want to own a business by myself, because sure, you might get some financial rewards, but what are you paying to get those rewards? Totally. And it's a lot. She's working all day, every day. That's all she does. It's her life, and I value other things in life. I want to travel. I like to fish. I want to go swimming. I want to do things. I want to read, whatever it is that I want to do, and I want to have the time for that. And owning a business in a cooperative model allows a little bit more, at least, of that time, because you have all of these other people helping you through the stresses of entrepreneurship, right?
Oh, especially for a restaurant. I can't even imagine. To be honest, I thought this conversation was going to be totally different about running a business, but it's totally different with what you guys have said, right? My story of typical restaurant owners, they're working long hours. They have to work every day, and even on the days that they're not working, right, to prep for the whole restaurant, right? So I love the business model. I don't know, maybe me and Dave might have a discussion now as we're growing our company, right? To see how that could, it's called co-op work. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah, worker co-op. Yeah.
Worker co-op.
Cool. And the big part too for the Allium, I want to see, I really want to see other worker co-ops form. So I'm actually in talks right now with 5 other businesses that are starting to incorporate, and trying to consult or give some support in their incorporation as a worker cooperative as well. I think the more worker co-ops there are, the better society is for everyone. The more we can support each other as worker co-ops, the better off we all are. So essentially to say that if you want some help at some point around that, please reach out. I would be happy to give you some advice and support.
I think we will, actually, because we just left one of our brokerages, and we partnered up with another brokerage, and we actually have the opportunity to kind of create what we want to create now for other realtors, right? So I feel it is a good time definitely to talk about that, especially if we want to grow, right? Because it took us a while to figure out how it was going to work, but this is completely out of the box business model for me, right?
Yeah. So. And it should be clear, when we were forming the Allium, I was working 3 jobs at the time, and then I was at the Allium. 2 were super part-time, so it wasn't that bad. Mm-hmm. But I was at the Allium, every spare moment building, like constructing, just designing, so it was definitely, I would say the first 6 to 8 months from writing the business plan to opening, and sort of a few months into opening, I was working nonstop. So, it definitely still has some of those elements of like traditional business, right? But, the more people join, the more people got involved, then that slowly starts to decline. And there's definitely people at the Allium, this is a group effort. It's not just Laura and I. There's people at the Allium who are working long hours still right now. And we need to address that structurally. We need to set up a structure that is easier for those people to work less hours, and that's something we're working on.
For sure. When you're starting out, absolutely, you got to put in the hours, right? You guys are still probably putting in long hours, right?
Yeah.
But it's that whole team mentality that you guys got going on and working into like a bigger company, right?
Definitely. Yeah. Even that emotional support is huge, right? Just to know someone's there.
Yeah.
And if you have losses, it's like, oh, I'm not alone. Like, what am I going to do? It's like, all right, we got this. Like, we're going to figure it out together. So,
are you guys planning to open up another one?
Not anytime soon, but there's definitely, again, the power of worker co-ops is like all of the people's ideas, and there's lots of people that have lots of ideas. And, we keep saying like, when, we would like to see the Allium kind of doing well. And COVID definitely complicated that a bit.
How do you guys adapt with COVID?
Yeah. Again, that connection to sort of social networks, the social capital of our owners. We were able to, right from the beginning, we were reached out by a group that was interested if we wanted to do cooking shows, digital cooking shows. So that was one of the first things we did was we do Meatless Monday, the last Monday of every month. We do a digital cooking class where people can buy an experience bag. It's shipped to their house or they can come pick it up. And then they join us for a 2-hour cooking class in the Allium kitchen, but all on Zoom. And we do, full meal with community partners, and we have farmers come and visit and do interviews. And it's a bit of a variety show. So it's been really fun. We switched to a takeout model right away, but are luckily doing dining again. We're doing
dining at 50% still.
So they changed the legislation. If you have barriers set up, you can basically fill it. Mm-hmm. So I was busy building barriers just
3 days before he was born.
Just before he was born, I was like, I have to finish building these barriers before the baby comes. So I was just frantically working at that. So we're a little still at reduced capacity, but our numbers are back up, which is great with the barriers. And we're doing packaged foods. So we've done a line of takeout items that are being sold at Blustein Organics, as well as Luke's Drug Mart. Mm-hmm. And the Bonesian. No, they're just doing
doing
and then we're doing sauces, so packaged sauces at Sunnyside, Natural Foods, the Bonesian and Boness. YYC Growers, which is a farming co-op, you can order it online, as well as Be Local, which is a network of local businesses in the city, and you can order them online there too. So we have a bunch of packaged food items that have helped us a lot too.
Awesome. What would you guys say, like, if you could tell yourself a year ago, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh man.
It's always pivots around this letting go thing, doesn't it? That's an easy answer. Maybe we could think of something better, but definitely I would tell myself, like, dude, just don't care so much.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Totally. Like, have faith that resolutions will be found, and that these huge issues that you think are massive at the time are actually not that big. And as long as you, you keep working hard, you keep that vision there, and the vision is collective. So you got to keep that collective vision together. It'll work out. I think with creativity and ingenuity and hard work, for the most part, you can make things happen. You can succeed, quote unquote.
That's awesome.
How do you guys make decisions being a collective? Like, do you guys vote that in, or like, how do you guys make that as with all the owners on any decisions that are being made?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. We early days were committed to this idea of non-hierarchy. Part of this thing as a humanization project is letting people realize that they are smart, they are powerful, that they can make decisions. And in a traditional business structure, you have very much a hierarchical structure. There's, the owner, the boss, the manager, employee. And basically the employee's job is to just realize the vision of the owner. But we find that to be not really humanizing. It teaches people to be good soldiers, but not good leaders, and not good empowered community members. So we wanted this process of non-hierarchy, but we recognize that consensus. So this idea of consensus is that everyone agrees on every decision, right? It's not voting. We would say democracy, or the traditional version of democracy or voting, is tyranny of the majority. So for instance, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 of us here. Did I do that right? 4? Well, count ever. So There's 5 of us here. And the 5 of us are going to vote on sharing a pie. And the 3 of us, let's say myself, David, and Jason, vote that Laura and Ever get no pie. Well, that's democracy. And that is tyranny of the majority. 2 are actually not allowed any pie, and 3 get all the pie. And we don't think that's very equitable. We don't think that makes for a just society. Consensus, by contrast, requires that the 5 of us make a decision and we all agree on it. So 5 of us will have to ultimately come to the conclusion that, well, Ever's tiny, so he gets a small piece of pie, and then the 4 of us will share the rest of it. But to do that in a business model, and the dynamic process of a business model operating in day-to-day is would be horrible. Like, think about it. If you had to make everyone, 15 of us, to agree on every decision every day, we would never get anything done. We would be tied up in bureaucracy. So we did a consensus workshop early days, and we were introduced into this concept of holacracy that I mentioned earlier. And it's essentially a fancy word to just say that we have hubs. We have groups of the restaurant's sort of been divided into major operating groups. So we have a front of house hub, a kitchen hub, a bar hub, an admin hub, bodega hub, which is like the packaged food line, etc. And then we have people who are at the lead of those hubs. Those lead roles rotate, so it's not always the same person there. And it is that person's role to ensure that they're realizing what the hub needs to do. So it doesn't mean that they have power, but they have responsibility. And it's their responsibility to make sure that that hub is functioning properly. If there's any large purchasing decisions or purchasing considerations, then they would have to reach out to the board of directors, which are all of the full owners right now. So they would say, I need $2,000 to buy a new stove. And then that would go to the board of directors, and the board would say, yeah, of course, we need a stove. Let's do it. We have monthly meetings. So every month we meet, and we use colored cards to help with consensus. So people can bring up different things they want to change or see or launch new programs or whatever. And in a way, it's like voting, but basically the whole co-op, all members, owners, and probationary will hold up, let's say, a green card if they agree, a yellow card if they need clarification or have a question, a purple card if they have a real problem with the proposal, and a red card if they're blocking it. If you're blocking a proposal, you need to have a solution as well. You can never just say, I don't want to see this and I block it. You always have to say, I'm going to block this, but here's my proposal as another option. And that's sort of this model of holacracy or non-hierarchical consensus we use. It allows us, again, to be dynamic in the day-to-day operations of a business. We respond. People can go and buy things and do things as they need. Bigger decisions or more structural decisions need to be brought up to the whole co-op together.
Wow.
I don't even know what I said. I think I said it.
Let me try to summarize this, okay? So you guys have different segments in your jobs, right? Like the front, the back, cooks, and each one has a lead, and they're taking the lead on that segment. And whatever decisions is made is brought to that team lead, essentially. But then you guys rotate the lead.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Perfect. Yeah, you got it.
That's it. And
basically, that's it.
How often do you guys rotate?
We have not yet rotated any lead.
How do you guys decide, like, how do you guys figure out who, like, for example, let's say you're good at, I don't know, the accounting side or the cook, like, and then you're moving to a different side, but what happens if you're not good at that lead, right? Or you don't know anything about it?
But you won't necessarily have to go into a role if you don't want to do it.
Or if you're not good at it.
If you're not good at it.
Yeah. Okay.
So like our admin lead, I have a feeling she probably will stay in that position as long as she's in the co-op. If she chose not to be, she wouldn't have to. She could rotate into a new role. But she really likes it. No one else really wants that position. Like no one's kind of like, hey, step aside, I want to do it. So she'll probably stay in that position for quite some time. So it's really based on what people want to do.
Yeah. Okay. We put, ideally in a perfect worker co-op, you have roles based on tasks that need to be done, not based on people. So you make a role because, for instance, head of the bar, well, someone needs to design cocktails and someone needs to make sure that they're coming out well and there's quality control and we're sourcing from local distilleries and breweries and whatever, all the things with that role. But ideally, that's not just because there's one person who's good at it. It's just a role that needs to be filled. And ideally, there's multiple people who can either learn or be trained or assume that role with some support. Now, in a restaurant, it definitely gets a little complicated. For instance, Alex Hamilton, the lead of our kitchen hub, dude's brilliant. Like, why would we take him out of that role, right?
Totally.
But the goal is at some point to take him out of that role. And ideally, he has created a structure that helps someone else come in there, and he helps bring them in there, and he guides them, he mentors them. And ideally,
I was going to ask, how does that work when, like, you got your main guy and then someone else wants to come in, and it's like, is there a competition? Like, how does that work where like they feel, how would you say it? Like someone's trying to replace them or something, Right. Like,
again, that's not,
you know what I'm saying? Like you're doing this for like, let's say 6 months, and then some guy just comes in, he's like, hey, I want to be part of this now. I want to buy in.
Yeah.
And, like kind of like, how does that work as in roles and hours and like?
Right.
Yeah.
It is partly that letting go piece that you're kind of circling around. We definitely prioritize hours for full owners. This is a worker co-op. We want full owners to be the ones operating, in charge of the space, getting the hours, right? So there is a bit of a hierarchy in a sense. But, if someone came in and they were, let's say, really, they were good at cooking. They really wanted to be the lead of the kitchen hub. They had some great menu design ideas. Well, we would ideally make space for them to take on that role. And that would involve the head of the kitchen stepping aside at some point. Co-leading. We have the option for co-leads. So someone can come in and say, I'm leading with the current lead. And eventually that lead would come out and the new lead would assume the full leadership role. Like even in our bar hub, for instance, like Graham Masters has been heading up our bar hub for a while now. And dude's brilliant. Like, why would we replace him, right? Why do we want to destroy our amazing cocktails? We don't. But, he's going to really work towards, and he has been working towards helping people understand how you make a good drink, how you balance flavors, what we're looking for. And when people propose different drinks, he's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's put them on there. And ideally at some point, he steps aside and other people have learned with this process of how to fulfill that role, and then they can do it. It's important to have that rotation role because it helps to undermine hierarchy, right? It helps to ensure that there's not one person who says, this is mine, or I'm the lead, or I know best.
I'm irreplaceable.
Yeah. And you know what? It's a good chance that someone comes in and they're not as good as that other person at first, but maybe with some belief and some support, they can actually realize again their power and their ability as a functioning human in this co-op.
I like that part that you guys were talking about with the cards and how that if people have problems with something, then you guys can kind of go to the consensus vote. And then with the red card, if there's a problem, then you better have a solution for this problem. Just turning it down and just focusing on the problem, create a solution to the problem, because that's what we find as well in our business is that we're really solution based.
Yes.
We have to deal with a lot of clients and their issues and their problems and things. So it's like, how can we figure a solution to that problem instead of just saying, okay, well, that's your problem now, So
Totally. And it's easy to critique and it's fun to critique. Like it's fun to be like, oh, I hate that and that's stupid, blah, blah, blah. But like, it's ultimately pointless. Like it's great to have a very clear awareness and analysis of what you're doing and a critique or an assessment of it. But it's equally important to create. And that's really what the Allium is. It's not about critiquing economy, critiquing structure. It's about saying, hey, we believe there's a better way to do this and we can create it. And we can create it alongside these other forms to just demonstrate, here's another way.
I think you guys said this before the podcast. Where did you guys get the word allium? And where does it come from? Because you guys, I think, said it before we started. So I just wanted to get that in.
It's the actual word is it's the genus of cultivated onions and garlics. Okay. So it includes a massive amount of different plants that are in that family. Mm-hmm. We thought, I can't remember. So, I mean, definitely onions and garlics are like the cornerstone of so much amazing food. And then there's this hokey element of like onions having layers, and like we being more than just a restaurant or just workers or, we're also deep like onions. No, sorry, it's so cheesy. But do you remember how we actually got that name?
It was actually one of our, it was Julia. Yeah, it was one of our old kind of founding members who had kind of come up with it. Mm-hmm. And we like that it started with an A because then when there's lists, you get at the top of the list because you're at the top of the list. So
we're always first.
And it has definitely worked for us in that respect a few times. So
yeah, and we just did like sort of classic, I put up a couple big sheets of paper, ledger paper, and then we just like threw out names, for like a week or two, mm-hmm. Wrote them all down, and then kind of shortlisted, a few of them, and then it was sort of like I think we were just really having a hard time deciding a name, and we were just like, Allium, okay, sure, yeah. That's great. Why not?
Yeah.
The full name of our incorporated name of the Allium is the Allium Restaurant and Bodega Worker Cooperative.
Wow.
It's a long name.
Is it called on the sign? Is it called on the front? It's the Allium or just Allium?
Yeah, the Allium. Yeah.
The Allium. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. I like that name.
It's a good, catchy name, right? So.
Thank you. Yeah, it works out really well. And it worked well with the logo, I think, and that design stuff. We did end up paying someone for help with that.
Cool.
For their graphics.
Yeah.
Cool. Dave, did you have any more questions?
I think that's it.
All right. I always like to ask this. What does happiness mean to you guys?
You're looking at it.
Yeah, of course, right?
That's an easy answer. Yeah. No, that was a cop-out answer, but it's definitely part of it. I mean, for me, happiness is about realizing the things that one values in one's life. And I don't think there's any one clear answer for that, but it's definitely family, it's relationships, it's community, and it's growth. It's intellectual growth. It's exploration. These things all matter a lot to me. And so I think having a balance is ultimately that happiness. It's not privileging one of those things over the other, but finding the right balance for your life and making sure that you're paying attention to those needs, those desires, the growth and the exploration. That to me is true happiness for sure.
Awesome.
You?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better.
And is there anything you guys just want to say to like restaurant owners, business owners, or just you just want to say before we end this podcast here, just to anything in your space?
Yeah, sell your business to your workers.
Yeah, do you want to enjoy your life? Don't be a sole proprietor. Yeah. Try and help empower people, build more just communities. Wealth may be important to some people, but you can't take it with you, right? So find the things that have meaningful wealth in your life today and help create a better world for people that come after you. And that often I think means looking beyond yourself. Look around you, look at your community, and just, let go of things.
I think we definitely, I know for me, definitely got something out of this, especially with the new co-work space and looking at our business model a little differently now also. So thank you for sharing with your knowledge with us and taking the time to talk to us, especially when you guys just had a baby a couple weeks ago. I mean, when I asked you guys, you were about to do it a week after. And I was like, I think you guys should have some time to just get settled in, right? So.
A lot of people have been saying that to us.
Yeah.
We're like, we just need a week and then we'll just be right back at it. Then we're like, oh, okay, maybe one more week.
Yeah, I'm glad we postponed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries.
And yeah, thanks so much for inviting us. I mean, it's a pleasure. We love to talk about the business model and to support its growth in any form. So as I said, please reach out at any time if you'd like to talk more about worker co-ops.
Absolutely, we will.
Anyone else out there that may be listening to, just shoot us a message, info@theallium.ca, and very happy to talk about worker co-ops and support either the transition of your current business to a worker co-op or the development of a new one.
So how can the people find you guys?
I think info@theallium.ca is a good one.
Where's your restaurant and like on social media outlets too?
Yeah, so you can always message on Facebook or on Instagram. Our handle is just @Allium Calgary.
Was that you that responded to me, Laura?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I literally just messaged you guys when I was there, just seeing if you guys want. That's awesome. And then where's the address? Where's that located? Yeah.
Oh, it's 211A 12th Avenue Southwest.
Okay.
So it's basically on the corner of First Street and 12th Avenue Southwest downtown. And it's right beside like Civic Tavern. It's on a great block. Like First Street's just full of awesome restaurants, and also 12th Ave there. So it's becoming quite a dine-out destination.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it'll take off again once COVID abates a bit here in the future.
I think it will. I think it will for sure. What are your hours? What are your hours again?
5:30 until 10 right now. And
Tuesday to Sunday.
Yeah, Tuesday. So we're closed Mondays.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well,
we'll have to come through sometime and pay you guys a visit.
Yeah, let us know, please.
We actually are doing just a little kind of brunch event on November 22nd.
Okay.
We're not doing brunch regularly, but we're kind of doing a little event that day.
Okay.
Yeah, we're collaborated with Confluence, so a local distillery, and we're doing kind of a cool set brunch menu, just that kind of one-off special event. So you can find out more about that on our Instagram and Facebook page. And one other cool thing that we've been doing in addition to those cooking classes is Sunday suppers. So every Sunday we do a set 4-course meal, and it's been really cool, totally different every week, and some awesome collaborators, local farms sort of helping out, just some really cool meals every Sunday. And it's sort of a nice way to just, come in and be surprised. You don't have to order anything. You don't got to think about anything. You just come in and you eat well and enjoy. So
awesome.
Yeah, please check it out.
They can find all that out on Instagram and Facebook, all the details on that, right?
Yeah. And our website, www.theallium.ca.
Awesome.
Cool.
Wicked.
Awesome. Awesome to have you guys. And I'll share this with you guys after.
Please do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much, Jason. Thank you, David. It's a pleasure meeting you both.
Thank you for listening to Behind the Business podcast.
Remember, you can find us on all social media outlets and reach out to us if you have any questions. And remember,
everybody enjoy their life. Don't wait. Just do it.